Hi, and welcome to my channel. That's what people say, right? I am totally new to this. This is my first video, so if you're here watching, I so appreciate you. But I wanted to start this channel because I myself get so much inspiration from other YouTubers, and I really wanted to be that for somebody, and I feel like I have some really good information, some really good stories to tell, and if I can help even just one person, then it's worth it for me. This video is going to be about how I became a web designer. I'm a freelance web designer. I live in Canada on the East Coast. I'm also a mom to a toddler, 3.5 years old, and I feel like I just totally changed my life by fully diving into web design and starting this business for myself. So I want to support other moms, other entrepreneurs who want more freedom and who want to know how to acquire these really marketable and profitable skills that will actually help people. So that is why I'm here. So if you're interested in hearing about how I became a web designer, then keep listening. So it starts back when I was in my early 20s and I was living in Toronto, and I got a job working at a startup called 500px. They are still a business. They are a website that you can go to and you can upload your pictures, and it was really fun working at this sort of startup environment. Mostly I had a good experience working there. That's another story time for another day. But my job there was to manage some of their social media and to do customer service, help people out with like the technical aspects of the website, how to upload things. And I also went through, like, when people reported images, I was the one who went through and deleted them or whatever needed to be done. And that was great, but one thing it did was it introduced me to the concept of web development, because I worked really closely with web developers, app developers, programmers, and UX designers, and really I was so curious about it and so interested in learning how to do that. And I did start learning at that point. There was a couple of people who I worked with who kind of started to mentor me and teach me the basics, but it really lit a fire in me. And something that I always kind of had told myself was, I'm not good at math, or I'm not smart enough to do this, so keep that in mind. But yeah, I was not confident in myself that I could learn how to do something like web development, and I realized web design is different from web development, but this is part of that story. So anyways, I left that job and I worked a couple of different jobs here and there. I've kind of been all over the place, but I've always been an entrepreneur at heart. So I did also start several small businesses in between. Nothing ever really panned out at that time. So the next place that is important to the story that I worked at was a digital marketing agency, or an inbound marketing agency in Toronto. And I did content marketing, I did SEO and stuff like that. And I really did learn a lot of like what content marketing is and inbound marketing. And I learned how powerful those tools are for businesses. So that was something that really kind of boosted my skill level. And I still wasn't really doing much web development or web design, but I was still teaching myself on the side. And then I left there and I got hired at Shopify, which that was the catalyst of everything else that came down the line for me. I started at Shopify as, well, at the time they called us gurus, which I was weirded out by that term, but it is what it is. They did eventually change it, I believe. They're not called gurus anymore, but we were basically the frontline customer support. We were the ones who answered the phone when they still had customer service on the phone. I know a lot has changed about Shopify since I left, but at the time that was my job, and they were very, very encouraging for leveling up your skills, and they paid for a lot of the courses I took and a lot of the books that I bought myself for learning web development. And that's really where I completely leveled up my web development skills. So I taught myself HTML and CSS, which are kind of like the foundations of web development, and I taught myself from books. And that might seem weird because I did do some online courses, but mostly I taught myself from books, and I forget which books, what they're called, but I will link them below if anybody's interested in a really, really good foundational place to start learning web development. These two books were like honestly game changing for me, and understanding all of the logic behind web development and all of the basics. So that was really good. And then at Shopify, I kept moving up. So I moved up to second tier support, which was really more so working with the Shopify stores and the themes for merchants. So we weren't frontline support anymore. We weren't answering phones or directly contacting the merchants most of the time. It was, we would get requests for certain like changes in somebody's store or to help fix something that they had broken, troubleshooting bugs and stuff like that. So I really started to get into the technical side of things, and I learned Shopify's templating language, which is called Liquid, and that was also really key, fundamental for me understanding the logic behind like certain programming models. And yeah, from there luckily Shopify paid for me to attend a coding bootcamp on JavaScript, which is kind of like, it's the logical next step. There are different languages that you can learn for different purposes. I was really interested and into front-end development, so that was my next logical step. So I learned JavaScript and jQuery and a couple of other programming languages or web development languages. And I also took a course in UX design. So that was really important too, like understanding the user experience and how to create an interface that makes sense for people, and like the psychology behind all of that design. And I took a couple graphic design courses. So the one thing about Shopify is that you can talk to two people who work even on the same team at Shopify and get a very different sense of their experience there. And I will never badmouth Shopify or anything like that, but my personal experience was really good up until it wasn't. And I moved from second tier support to, I worked on a development team and I helped do front-end development on some of the actual Shopify website. And then I moved to a content marketing position on the API team. And whatever reason, I ended up burning out really bad. I was not in a good place in my life. I went through a really bad breakup. My puppy, who was less than a year old, was hit by a car and unfortunately passed away, and that was really devastating for me. I still get emotional about it, but this was back in 2018. So I took a short-term like stress leave from Shopify so that I could heal myself, and I went on antidepressants, and it was just a whole big thing, journey of self-discovery and like, what do I really want to do with my life? And I still wanted to do web development and that kind of stuff, but I was just really burnt out by that sort of really high growth, fast-paced startup life. Even though the compensation was good, it just wasn't worth my health and my mental health. So I quit after my stress leave and I moved back to the East Coast of Canada. So I left the big city, which was really hard for me to do because being in Toronto was honestly a huge part of my identity, and I was so proud of myself for having moved there, because I moved there by myself when I was 19, and it was such a pivotal part of my development in my 20s. So I moved back in 2018, at the end of 2018, and I had no idea what I wanted to do, really. Like, I had some ideas, and one of my hobbies at the time in Toronto and when I came back was dance. So, and I did not grow up a dancer. I have no dance experience like before my 20s, so I didn't know what I was doing. But I did move back to a small town where there was nowhere to take dance classes as an adult. There was only kids' dance classes. So I was like, whatever, I'm gonna call up some of my old friends and like see if anybody wants to get together once a week to learn a choreography or, you know, just casually for fun. I didn't have a job at the time, so I was like, let's just figure something out. Anyway, before I knew it, there was like 30 people showing up every week to my classes, which became my classes, and I had to think of choreography and do all this stuff. So I kind of got thrown into being a dance teacher. And just for a tiny bit more context there, I had been teaching other kinds of movement on the side when I was working at Shopify and stuff in Toronto. So I worked at a circus school in Toronto. I took a bunch of classes and certifications and stuff there. So it wasn't totally out of my realm to teach people how to move their bodies. It was just the dance aspect was a little bit new to me, and I didn't really plan on jumping into that, but one thing led to another, and I partnered with another dancer in the city, and we ended up opening a dance studio. And if you are one of my friends watching this, you are familiar with this story. We started a dance studio for adults that was very much focused on, you know, allowing adults as beginner dancers to come to a safe space to learn how to dance without fear of judgment or trying to be perfect or whatever. And it was so much fun. It was such a good place to be, and it was a really good time in my life for the most part. Yes, it was stressful, and yes, I'm still dealing with certain things of that business even though it is no longer open. So opened that business in 2019, beginning of 2019. And you're probably wondering, what the hell does this have to do with web development? It's coming back around, don't worry. For that business, I did develop our website. You know, I built our website, I did all of our marketing, our social media and stuff like that, with the help of my business partner, obviously. So, you know, I was still using some of my skills, and running a business is very much like you have to wear a lot of hats. So I was still doing a lot of content marketing, a lot of SEO, just trying to get our stuff out there as much as possible. So that's that whole thing. Anyway, COVID happened, and a few days before we went into our first lockdown here in New Brunswick, Canada, I found out I was pregnant. So that's how that goes, right? Always. There's never a good time, but it's always the best time in the end. So I found out I was pregnant a few days before we went into lockdown, and we pretty much had to shut our studio down for the first 3 months, which ended up working out because I did not have a great first trimester. I was just very sick all the time, and so it ended up working out for me because I got kind of a break from teaching dance and running the business, even though I was still running the business. We did a lot of online classes and stuff like that. So anyway, fast forward to 2022, where I had to close the business. My business partner had left, and I was burning out again, and I was like, I love teaching dance and I love creating this safe space for people, but not at the expense of my well-being. And that's where it was getting, because we had never fully recovered after COVID. We were so like in debt, like the business was in debt, and the attendance just wasn't the same. And I was like, I need to pivot something in my life. And so I made the decision to close the studio. And then I had to find a job, because you can't just, anyway. I had to find a job. So I was like, okay, well, I have my web development skills, I have my content marketing, social media, all of those skills. What can I do? And really, I live in such a small town that nobody was hiring for anything like that. I couldn't find any remote position that kind of used my skills. I had been sort of out of the field for a few years, so I didn't even really know where to start. And then through a acquaintance, I got a job basically as a receptionist at a clinic, a wellness clinic, but she also needed social media help and some website help. So I was like, okay, let me just use this as an opportunity to brush up on my skills again and, you know, get some stuff in my portfolio. In the meantime, I'm doing this part-time job, and on the side I start doing more web development, but this time I'm building websites for other small businesses in the area, and just through word of mouth, getting clients and charging a very not enough amount, a very small amount, mostly because I had done a lot of web development and some design stuff, some UX design stuff, but it was all sort of for Shopify or it wasn't really on my own. I didn't know really how to charge or how to make these decisions, what my workflow was going to be. So I just kind of kept it very casual. And then I ended up getting another job at a lighting store, so random, but they were hiring for a marketing person, a digital marketing person, someone who could work on their website, but also like maybe do ads and social media and stuff for them. So I took the job, and it was great. I love everybody who I worked with there, but there was something still not aligning for me. I wasn't really super passionate about selling lighting fixtures, and that was part of the job. And I did rebuild their website, and I did a lot of social media for them, and I still do some work for them. But I just knew that if I was going to not burn myself out and be, you know, financially independent, I had to sort of change something. So this is where things get a little bit interesting. I decided to quit this stable full-time job at the lighting store and dive in full-time to offering to build websites for small businesses. So I started a business called Aligned Web Design, and through word of mouth from my past clients that I had been doing like part-time and sort of on the side, I ended up booking myself like 3 months in advance. So don't discount the power of word of mouth when you are a small business owner, you are starting a small business, or if you're trying to do freelance work. It's so powerful. And I want to be very transparent on this channel. I am still in the beginning stages of this freelance journey, and I don't know what next month or the month after is going to look like. And that's the risk when you run a small business or when you freelance. You have to always be on it to make sure that you are getting clients in the door or selling your products or whatever it is. And one of the reasons I want to start this YouTube channel is because it's just another outlet for me to, I guess, market myself, but also share everything I've learned, because honestly the first few months of freelancing has been life-changing for me, and I just have a feeling it's only gonna get better from here. So in my first 3 months, I've made like $15,000, which might not seem like a lot, but it is more than I had made at my full-time job, and most of that I made in the first 2 months of doing freelancing. So I know that I can continue to build this business, and I've created some really amazing strategies and workflows for this business, so I'm excited to share those later if you are interested. But yeah, that's basically how I got from there to here. And one thing I really want to reiterate is you don't need to have all the skills ready. Like, you don't need to know everything first. You can just start making stuff and kind of seeing what happens, and you gotta start somewhere, right? And that's another reason I'm putting this YouTube video out, because I've been wanting to do YouTube for a really long time, and I feel like the only thing that's ever held me back is wanting it to be perfect, or wanting it to be something, or wanting to know everything before I start. But I realized that done is better than perfect, and putting something out there is really the first step. And I hope that this video is interesting to you in some way. If you have more questions about my journey, or exactly what skill set I have, or the kind of things that I do in my business, I'm going to be making a lot more videos that go into more detail about my business, about my freelancing, and about my life in general, because I love watching that kind of stuff. So if you're interested in watching my sort of mom, entrepreneur, web design, skill level up life and journey, then yeah, I really hope that you stay and subscribe and like this video. Leave me comments, ask me questions. I really want to build a community here, and I hope to see you next time.